Hello and welcome to video number 3 in Design a Life Worth Living. I want to take a moment to just acknowledge you for being on this journey and for getting to this part of our adventure together. I'm your host and your guide, Dr. Minette Riordan, and I know how important it is to you to map the journey, to design a life worth living, and to have a clear action plan for how to make that dream a reality. We can get easily caught up in thinking about what's possible in the future and fail to get really present with what's happening right now in the moment that may be creating this big gap from where we are and where we can see ourselves somewhere out there in this beautiful distance. So today, in part 3, what we're talking about is meeting yourself on the adventure. So on the heroine's journey, we tend to cycle through different stages. And in this particular video series, I'm really focusing in on the stage that I call yearning to reconnect to the feminine. This is the part of yourself that is really looking for some new form of creative expression. You're experiencing a spiritual awakening, or your body and your emotions are kind of rearing up and raising their proverbial hands and saying, we want to get your attention right now. It's saying that you are at a point in your life where you get to choose something new and different. But in order to choose something new and different, in order to design a life worth living, you have to meet yourself on the journey. So how do we go about meeting ourselves on the journey? Well, you'll remember in part 1 that I talked about how you may be experiencing 4 different types of awakening. So it may be a sensual, emotional, creative, or spiritual awakening that you're experiencing that is causing you to pause and reflect on what your life looks like currently. And in part 2, in video 2, we talked about aligning with your core values. We also talked about remembering some of the things that you loved about your childhood. And we started to look at mapping the next stages of the quest by remembering who we are and making sure that what we're designing and creating is in alignment, it's in congruence. And yet there is so often when we're meeting ourselves on this journey that we find ourselves a little discombobulated and confused and overwhelmed. We're remembering painful stories that we're still kind of holding on to the threads of. So the next stage of the journey is about meeting all the parts of yourself. It's not just about seeing who you're being right now in this moment, but it's acknowledging and reclaiming who you've always been. It's about bringing up some of the stories and looking at the stories and perhaps releasing them, or taking the learnings and the beautiful gifts of those stories so that we can move on. This is work that I love to do, and I often think about it like Carl Jung's idea of archetypes, and that we all have personas that are driving our behavior and driving our choices, and that different archetypes are present to us at different stages of our lives. So for those of us who are women, there are so many archetypes that are active, and all of these archetypes have a propensity to show up at different stages of the heroine's journey. So mother, sister, rebel, warrior, so many of the archetypes that we could be playing. Daughter is another archetype, leader, artist, sage, wise woman, crone, the child. In fact, all of us have many different aspects of the inner child present within us at any time. These are all examples of different parts of ourselves that may be showing up to give us a lesson. And one of my favorite ways to explore parts of self and to start to create an inner dialogue with ourselves so that we can really dial in and listen and pay attention to the voice of our inner wise woman. That's the archetype that is going to guide us as we map our heroine's journey and move towards this life that we're creating. So how do we go about doing this? Well, one of my favorite ways to do it, I actually have 2 favorite ways that I want to share with you today. One is simply by journaling and really starting to explore these themes and start to really make a list of the roles that you play in your life. Really look at all of the roles: mother, sister, daughter, employee, entrepreneur, artist, professional, CEO, maybe you're an airline pilot. So it doesn't matter what the roles are. There's no judgment about any of the roles that you're playing, but all of them form this whole of who you're being at any given moment. And some of them kind of get left behind, or the voice in the back of your head might be tuning certain voices out. And it's so important to explore the voices that are active in our lives at any different time. And this is not about saying that you're insane or have lots of voices in your head, but this is really about noticing aspects of self that are present in the moment that are asking to be heard and acknowledged. So one of the fun ways you can do this is to make a list of the different roles that you're playing and then simply engage in a verbal dialogue with the role. So for example, as a mom, I can definitely have an in-depth conversation with my own inner mother and my connection to the mother as an archetypal role that I'm playing, and how do I see myself as a mom. Now, right now my kids are 20 and 17, and so the role as mom that I'm playing, or that I get to play right now, is so different than it was when they were little and I played a very different archetypal role. And as I think about the archetypal role of mother, I can't help thinking about mother, my own mother and grandmother, and the archetypal mother, Gaia, earth energy. There's so many ways that the archetype of the mom may be showing up in your life right now. And that's just one simple example of a way to start looking at and reclaiming parts of self. And maybe you're not a mom and want to be, and that's all right too. And so you start to explore, what would it look like, be like to be a mom? Maybe you weren't able to have children, and so you have found beautiful ways to mother others that serve and nurture you and are such a gift to them as well. So it's one example of how archetypal energy can show up in our lives. And I know for me personally, the archetype of the mother also has a shadow side. At 54, I feel like it's taken me a lifetime of working out my own issues about being a daughter of an amazing, strong-willed mom with her own opinions that weren't mine, and created some tension between us over the years. And not to make my mom a villain, but to learn to love her as she is and not who I, as the kid, thought she needed to be. So it's one example of how archetypes tend to play out in our lives. So journaling with each of these and just kind of doing a sort of stream of consciousness dialogue can be a really fun way to start to explore. Another fun way is to use collage processes. So this example is from a process called Journey Circles. It's one of the processes that I use in my creative depth coaching work, where I work with women one-on-one to help them design their heroine's journey and them to really map the quest and create where it is they want to go next. So those are some of the circle ones. Here's some of the ones as well, where I was exploring different parts of self. So the queen is an archetype, right? The wild woman who loves nature is an archetype, right? And I'm showing these all in order. This was the queen, so I can't see things that I'm backwards. And I love this one, the woman in nature that's tending her garden, and part of her garden is about art and words and creativity. So these are all different parts of myself that I have been exploring over time and creating dialogues with. And I invite you to very simply create this for yourself as well. This is not a vision board process at all, but you might just grab a magazine and flip through it and tear out one or two images of women that speak to you for some reason and glue them on a journal page, and then have a dialogue with that image. What does this particular persona or archetype have to say to you today about where you are on the journey? Because in order to move forward on the heroine's journey towards this life worth living, we have to acknowledge who we're being right now in the moment and who we think we have to be, and how to bridge that gap between the two. Because the challenge is that right now you're here on this video series because there is a gap. There's a gap between the life you're living in the moment and this life that you can see is possible for yourself, and gaining access to some creative tools to help you understand the awakening that you're experiencing experiencing, and how to move through this stage in order to get to the next stage is part of the work that I feel really called to support you in doing. And I'm going to share more about this in video 4, but as I said before, at any time, if you're feeling called to have a one-on-one conversation with me to really pinpoint where you are on your heroine's journey, I invite you to just click the button below and sign up for a Breakthrough to Creative Courage conversation with me. It's a free conversation, no strings attached. We'll figure out what it is that you're looking at right now, and if you feel like working together would be a great idea for you, then we'll talk about that too. But I really don't want you to think that this is some veiled sales opportunity. This is genuinely my passion to show up in service to women, because I find that we have so much more potential when we simply get some clarity about where we are in the moment, who we're being in the moment, how to bridge this gap between what we really want for ourselves, what we desire and dream about, and what we're actually doing in the moment. You may be feeling a little lost, unsure how to get started. Well, start by exploring the different roles you play and notice what's missing. Is there something on the list of these roles that you're playing right now in your life that you'd really rather be doing, but you're unsure how to start? You don't know where to begin, and you don't even maybe believe it's possible for you. You can't see the steps for getting where you're going. This is the perfect time to have a conversation in your journal, to interact with some images pulled from magazines and start the conversation. And also now is the perfect time to schedule that conversation with me personally, so that together we can map your heroine's journey and bridge that gap a little bit faster. In video number 4, I'll be sharing how to find your guides and your allies on the journey, because we all need guides and allies. We all need mentors. And you may have more support on your team right now than you're giving yourself credit for. And so we're going to explore a little bit about what it means on the heroine's journey to find allies and guides. I'll see you in video number 4. Have an amazing day. And don't forget, at any time, feel free to just shoot me an email and let me know what's coming up for you. You can reach me at Minette@MinetteRiordan.com. I'll see you in the next video.